There is a quiet strength that doesn't need explanations, arguments, or closure. A strength that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't try to change someone's mind. It's the kind of silence that carries dignity, that radiates self-respect, and that pierces deeper than any reply could. Rejection was never the end. It was simply the spark that awakened this silence. And while the world expects noise after pain, the quiet becomes a storm no one saw coming. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is a force that carries its own weight, its own message, and its own sting. When words are withheld after rejection, something strange happens. The quiet begins to echo. It doesn't echo outside where the world can hear it, but inside where the thoughts never stop moving. It is in that inner space where silence becomes louder than any argument, louder than any explanation, louder than any outburst of pain could ever be. At first, the absence of words seems simple, almost forgettable. A moment passes, a day goes by, and it feels like nothing is happening. But the mind, restless and curious, does not allow it to be forgotten. It replays the rejection, it rewinds the last words exchanged, it revisits the expressions, the tones, the atmosphere, trying to fill in the gap left by the silence. And the more it tries, the more the silence resists. The unanswered space becomes unbearable because it refuses to offer closure. And closure is the one thing the heart always searches for after rejection. Silence does not chase, and that is why it hurts. It does not argue, it does not plead, it does not show the wound that rejection caused. Instead, it becomes invisible, yet in that invisibility lies its sharpest weapon. The absence of reaction turns into presence, the kind of presence that cannot be ignored. Suddenly, every quiet moment feels heavier, every unanswered message feels louder. Every day without a response feels like a constant reminder that something powerful is happening behind the scenes. It is in this echo of absence that the mind begins to betray itself. Doubts creep in, regrets surface, and what once felt like control slowly begins to dissolve. The silence whisks questions in the stillness of the night. Was the rejection a mistake? Was something overlooked? Did silence mean strength, or did it mean indifference? And because no answer comes, those questions never stop. They repeat, they multiply, they circle endlessly until the quiet grows unbearable. There is an irony in silence. It speaks without speaking. It delivers its message without ever forming words. It shows that dignity is stronger than desperation, that self-respect is louder than begging for attention, and that walking away in stillness can break far more than shouting ever could. The echo of absence does not fade with time. It grows, it lingers, it becomes a constant shadow in the mind of the one who expected noise but found nothing. And that nothingness, cold, calm, unshaken, becomes everything. It becomes the proof that rejection did not destroy, it did not weaken, it did not control. Instead, it only revealed a silence so powerful that it could haunt long after the words of rejection were spoken. The echo of absence is not weakness, it is strength dressed in stillness, and it is through that strength that silence cuts deeper than any reply ever could. Power is rarely about who speaks the loudest, it is about who remains unshaken when the other expects a reaction. Rejection is meant to strip away confidence, to leave someone scrambling for answers, to make them prove their worth in the aftermath of dismissal. But when silence follows instead of desperation, the balance begins to tilt. Suddenly, the one who thought they held control no longer feels certain, because the script they imagined is no longer being followed. They expected words, they expected to see the wound, they expected pursuit, but silence gives them nothing. This is where the shift in power begins. At first, rejection feels final, decisive, and absolute. But the absence of reaction unsettles that certainty. It creates an unspoken message. You do not hold the final word over my life. That quiet defiance changes everything. The dynamic that was once tilted in favor of the one who rejected begins to crumble because silence refuses to validate the act. By not giving it attention, by not pouring energy into trying to undo it, silence steals the very power that rejection tried to claim. There is a strange discomfort in facing silence. It removes the satisfaction that rejection usually brings. There is no visible defeat, No evidence of heartbreak, no desperate attempt to cling on. Instead, there is calm. And calm is unsettling because it suggests strength, it suggests options, it suggests someone who cannot be broken simply by being dismissed. The one who thought they were in control now faces the haunting possibility that their rejection did not matter, that it held no weight, that it carried no real power. Every day of silence increases this shift. With each unanswered moment, the question grows louder: who truly won here? Rejection was meant to weaken, but silence shows resilience. Rejection was meant to define the ending, but silence creates a new beginning on its own terms. In this way, the roles quietly reverse. The one who once felt sure now feels unsure. The one who once felt superior now feels curious, unsettled, even restless. The truth is, silence is never passive. It is an active choice to withhold energy, to hold dignity close, and to deny the satisfaction of reaction. That choice alone is power because it takes discipline to stay silent when emotions scream to be heard. It takes strength to resist the urge to fight for validation. And that discipline, that strength, creates an aura that cannot be ignored. The shift in power is not about revenge or proving worth. It is about reclaiming the center. It is about refusing to let someone else's rejection decide your value. It is about standing so firmly in silence that the balance of control tilts without a single word spoken. And in that shift, the one who was once dismissed becomes unforgettable, because nothing haunts the mind more than a silence that will not break. Silence has a way of turning the world inward. It does not provide explanations, it does not offer reassurance, and it does not ease the sting of uncertainty. Instead, it forces reflection. When no words come, the mind begins to wander back, replaying every detail, every moment, every decision, as if searching for clues. What was once a confident rejection suddenly becomes less certain because silence does not confirm or deny. It simply leaves space, and in that space, regret begins to grow. Regret never arrives loudly. It creeps in quietly, first as a faint question that lingers at the back of the mind. Did I make the right choice? Was there something I overlooked? Was there more behind that silence than I allowed myself to see? With no answers to silence those questions, they begin to multiply. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting all the what-ifs that were ignored before. And the more that reflection deepens, the more uncomfortable it becomes. Words would have softened the blow. Pleading would have reassured the decision. Anger would have confirmed the power of rejection. But silence offers none of these comforts. It offers only stillness, and in that stillness, the rejected choice is forced to stand alone, bare and vulnerable to scrutiny. With every passing moment of quiet, it becomes harder to believe that rejection was as final, as certain, or as correct as it seemed in the moment. There is something haunting about realizing that the silence does not chase. It does not seek closure. It does not fight to be heard. It simply allows the other to live with their decision, and in doing so, it casts that decision under a harsher light. The strength of silence makes rejection look weaker, almost impulsive, as if it was born of pride or haste rather than truth. And when the weight of that realization sinks in, regret begins to feel heavy. The mirror of regret is merciless. It does not reflect the surface. It reflects the soul. It shows the missed chances, the lost possibilities, the potential that could have been explored but now remains locked behind silence. It whispers of opportunities thrown away, of connections cut too soon, of decisions that can never be taken back. The silence does not argue this, it simply holds the mirror steady, forcing the reflection to be faced without distraction. And that is why silence carries such power. It does not need to seek revenge. It does not need to prove worth. It does not need to demand acknowledgement. All it does is reflect, and in that reflection, regret grows naturally. Regret grows because silence denies escape. It leaves the decision to stand unchallenged. And in that unchallenged space, the truth slowly begins to shift. Rejection loses its certainty, and the mirror of regret shows what can never be undone. Mystery is a force that unsettles the mind more than any harsh truth ever could. Words, even painful ones, give definition. They draw boundaries, they explain, they bring clarity. But silence strips all of that away and replaces it with uncertainty. When no words are spoken, no explanations given, no emotions revealed, the imagination takes over, and imagination is far more relentless than reality. What is not said becomes heavier than what could have been spoken, because the unknown carries 1,000 possibilities. The weight of mystery grows with time. At first, silence seems empty, like a void without meaning. But as the hours stretch, that emptiness fills with questions. What does it mean? Is it indifference? Is it strength? Is it detachment? Or is it something deeper that cannot be seen? Each possibility feels more tormenting than the last. The human mind craves certainty, yet silence denies it, and in that denial lies its sharpest weapon. Mystery refuses to settle, refuses to give comfort, refuses to allow closure. Instead, it becomes a storm of unspoken thoughts. The most unsettling part of silence is not knowing where the other person stands. Rejection was supposed to close the chapter, but silence leaves the pages blank, open for interpretation. Is this silence proof of moving on, or proof of unshakable confidence? Is it a quiet goodbye, or a stronger beginning? The absence of answers leaves the rejected mind to craft stories, and those stories are rarely kind. They grow darker, heavier, more consuming, because when the truth is hidden, the imagination makes it far worse. Mystery creates a pressure that cannot be escaped. In conversation, there are cues, expressions, tones, gestures that offer hints of what someone feels. Silence removes all of that. It leaves only a stillness that gives nothing away. And in that stillness lies a power greater than confrontation, because confrontation provides resolution. Silence provides only wonder, only speculation, only the endless replaying of moments that lead nowhere. The mystery becomes unbearable yet irresistible at the same time. The weight of mystery is that it lingers. It follows into quiet moments, into sleepless nights, into the restless thoughts that spin endlessly. It makes the mind restless, hungry for answers it cannot have, desperate for clarity it cannot reach. And the more it searches, the heavier the silence feels, until it becomes a presence all on its own, a presence stronger than words, stronger than memory, stronger even than the rejection itself. That is the paradox of silence. It hides everything, yet in hiding, it reveals the deepest fears and the sharpest doubts. It offers nothing, yet in offering nothing, it creates everything the imagination can invent. The mystery weighs down because it cannot be solved, it cannot be pinned down, it cannot be controlled. And in that unsolvable weight, silence becomes the most haunting response of all. Validation is one of the deepest human needs. To feel seen, to feel acknowledged, to feel important. These are the silent desires that live beneath every interaction. Rejection is meant to strip that validation away, to remind someone that they are no longer chosen, no longer wanted, no longer significant. Yet silence responds in a way that magnifies this hunger. Instead of begging, instead of seeking reassurance, it denies all forms of validation entirely, leaving an emptiness that gnaws deeper than the rejection itself. When there are no words, there is no confirmation of power. There is no visible wound, no evidence of pain, no display of vulnerability to feed the ego of the one who delivered the rejection. Silence removes the satisfaction of being proven significant through another's suffering. It denies the validation that comes from seeing someone plead, explain, or chase after what was lost. And in that denial, the craving begins to take hold. The longer silence stretches, the louder that craving becomes. Questions form, restless and unresolved. Did the rejection matter at all? Was it taken seriously? Did it leave any mark? Each question digs deeper, searching for signs of significance, but the silence provides nothing. And that nothingness becomes unbearable because the mind was expecting proof of importance. Instead, it finds indifference, or at least the appearance of it, and that absence of validation feels like a wound of its own. Validation is not just about ego, it is about control. Rejection is supposed to affirm a sense of superiority, the comfort of knowing that someone cared enough to hurt. But silence disrupts that pattern. It refuses to hand over evidence of pain, refuses to confirm weakness, refuses to feed the very need that rejection was meant to satisfy. And without that validation, the power begins to slip away. What was supposed to be a final decision now feels uncertain because it no longer carries the weight it was meant to. The craving grows more desperate with time. Silence is mistaken for strength, mistaken for indifference, mistaken for a life that continues unaffected. And the absence of validation becomes an unbearable presence. It sparks a need to test, to provoke, to search for any sign that the rejection mattered. But silence offers none, and in doing so, it forces the rejected mind to confront the most haunting possibility of all, that perhaps the power never truly existed, that perhaps the rejection was insignificant, that perhaps the one who remained silent was always stronger. This is why silence wounds so deeply. It is not only the absence of words, it is the absence of recognition. It is the quiet refusal to grant validation, to acknowledge the weight of another's choice. And in that refusal, the craving only grows, unfulfilled and relentless, leaving behind a restlessness that no amount of certainty can ease. Control is rarely taken with force. It is often claimed in the quietest of ways. Rejection was supposed to declare control, a final act of power that left no space for resistance. But silence shifts the current in ways no one anticipates. It looks like nothing on the surface, no reaction, no words, no fight. Yet underneath, it becomes the most powerful response of all because it places control back into the hands of the one who appeared dismissed. Unexpected control begins with restraint. To not react when emotions demand expression requires discipline that few can master. To hold back words when the heart longs to scream is a choice that transforms weakness into strength. That choice alone breaks the rhythm that rejection depends on. The expected cycle, decision, pain, reaction is interrupted. The silence creates a new path, one that belongs entirely to the one who refused to play the part written for them. What makes this control so unexpected is that it is invisible at first. It does not announce itself, it does not boast, it does not demand recognition. Instead, it works quietly, slowly shifting the balance. Each moment of silence takes away power from the rejection, stripping it of its finality, its authority, its weight. And with each passing day, the quiet grows stronger until it is clear that control no longer rests with the one who thought they ended everything. It rests with the one who refused to break. This control is not about manipulation, it is about presence. Silence creates an aura that cannot be ignored, a calmness that unsettles because it is unshaken. While words could have been twisted, misinterpreted, or dismissed, silence leaves nothing to attack. It stands firm, untouchable, undeniable. That unbending stillness becomes power in its purest form because it cannot be taken away, cannot be argued against, cannot be diminished. The unexpected control of silence lies in how it rewrites the story. Rejection was supposed to define the ending, but silence defines the aftermath. It becomes the narrative, the part that lingers, the part that continues to echo long after the words of rejection fade. It holds the authority to dictate how the memory of the rejection will be carried, whether it is remembered as a moment of superiority or as the beginning of regret. And more often than not, silence ensures it becomes the latter. Control, in its true sense, is the ability to stand firm without needing to prove anything. It is the calm assurance that one's value does not depend on being chosen, that dignity cannot be stripped away by another's decision. That is what silence embodies. It does not chase, it does not explain, it does not bend. And in this refusal to surrender, it claims a control so unexpected that it leaves the other powerless, haunted, and restless in the face of unshakable quiet. Silence was never weakness. It was never avoidance. It was the language of strength spoken without words, the quiet storm that shifts power, sparks regret, carries mystery, denies validation, and takes back control. What began as rejection transforms into reflection, and what was meant to break instead becomes unshakable. In the end, it is not the noise of anger, not the weight of pleading, not the chaos of confrontation that lingers the longest. It is the stillness, the silence, the calm refusal to surrender dignity. And that silence, stronger than any reply, becomes the echo that never dies,